Today's podcast is sponsored by Shauna Hawkins Photography. Welcome to the Mental Health Raw and Open podcast with your host, Jody Betty.
Hey, and welcome to the Mental Health Raw and Open podcast. I'm your host, Jody, and today we are taping with a dear friend of mine, Brendan. Brendan is currently living out of the United States in a very nice, beautiful, warm country. And Brendan is also founder of a company called Via Stoica, which we will get into a little bit. Welcome to the show, Brendan.
Oh, thanks so much, Jody. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
How you doing today?
Oh, it's good. It's great here down in Panama. Sunny day so far. But yeah, I'm doing great today. How are you, Jody?
I'm doing good. Same thing. We got some sun today, so that makes me really happy since we haven't seen it in a couple of months. It looks like it actually might last for a whole day, which would be exceptional.
All right. That's a
So,
great day.
yeah, exactly. Can't complain at all. So, Brendan and I met through his Stoic spaces, probably about a year ago now, eh?
Oh yeah, it's been definitely over a year, I would say. Because we've been doing the Stoic Spaces for over 2 years. And you
Oh,
came
that's
in, I would think,
awesome.
sort of relatively in the beginning time, I would say. So yeah, maybe a
Yeah,
year
yeah,
and
I
a
think
half.
so. That's awesome. Um, can you tell everyone a little bit about Stoicism or the Stoicism space that you run? Because I really enjoyed it. I learned so much in those spaces. Like every single time, I just learned so much.
Oh, awesome. I'm so happy. That brings me like a huge smile on my face to know that's what they're providing for you. But yeah, to give a little background on what Stoicism is, it's an ancient philosophy from 2,000 years ago, made popular by people like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. Basically, the kind of core component of the philosophy is that we focus on what we can control, and that's where we put our energy and efforts, and we ignore all the things that we can't control. And what you come to learn as you study the philosophy is that there's pretty much very few things that we control: our opinions, our thoughts, our actions. And what you notice is none of those things have to do with other people. And most of what I've learned throughout my life is that the anxieties, the stresses, the challenges of my life often are caused or made worse by my thoughts, feelings, and opinions of other people. So I think it does a really good job with kind of putting things into a better perspective for you. And then another thing I think it's important to kind of touch on when it comes to Stoicism and when we talk about Stoic philosophy is to address the misconceptions. There is a lot of misconceptions that Stoicism is a very emotionless sort of philosophy. When you describe someone as Stoic, they're stone faced, never showing how they feel, and kind of stamping down or suppressing their emotions. And that couldn't be further from the truth, as like when you think about it from a philosophy standpoint. Stoic philosophers are people that examine their emotions and why they're feeling them and how they're feeling them, and then become closer and more friendly with those emotions over time. So I do kind of make a point to dispel that sort of idea that Stoicism pushes out emotions. Quite the contrary, it embraces all emotions, and then just uses them as more like data points to say, hey, this thing makes me feel bad, or this activity makes me feel good. So it's just our body communicating with us, and that's really what the Stoics teach us. But my journey in Stoicism started almost 10 years ago, actually. I was listening to a podcast with Ryan Holiday, who's kind of the main Stoic writer, at least in the United States, and then picked up all his books and started digging through those, and then picked up the ancient texts and started digging through those. And this went on for 5-6 years, where I was studying philosophy and reading about philosophy, but never talking about it with another soul. It was a very personal thing. And then my girlfriend at the time and now wife, Kara, she was getting involved. She was starting to read the philosophy a little bit, which got me excited because I had someone to talk to about it.
Yeah.
And it was nice to have that. So every day, there's this book that Ryan Holiday writes called The Daily Stoic. Every day he has a different Stoic quote. So I would try and get Kara to talk to me about that quote. Hey, what do you think this means? How do you apply it in your life? That sort of stuff. And she was like, Brendan, I love you, but I don't want to do any part of this. So please find some friends that will do this with you. And so that's what I did. I went to Twitter and I started a space and I said, hey, who wants to talk about the Daily Stoic? Because I knew people in the world were reading it. So I just assumed some of them would want to talk about it. And I was thoroughly shocked at the first day I had the space. I think we had about 40 or 50 people in there. The next day, next time I did it, it was pretty much about the same. So immediately I was just like, okay, this is something, because normally spaces had 5, 10 people, maybe,
Right.
so there was something happening. There was something occurring where I was like, okay, people want to hear these conversations. They want to interact with this idea, this philosophy. So I started doing them more regularly. Along the way, I bumped into Benny and Bryce on X as well. They already had their own space that they were doing on Wednesdays. I was doing mine on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we were like, okay, let's just support each other. So we started going to each other's spaces. And then over time, as we built a stronger relationship between the three of us, we then started the company Via Stoica to kind of bring everything under one umbrella. So now we have the Via Stoica podcast, the Via Stoica website, our blog. We do the spaces still on X. And then, of course, we will be adding more things as time goes on.
That's
So
amazing.
long-winded,
Yeah.
but that's the whole story.
No, 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 that's amazing. Like, it's so wonderful when you can actually find like-minded people to connect with. And I remember like touching on Stoicism in philosophy in college, but God, my philosophy teacher was actually one of my soccer coaches, so it was pretty easy to get him off the topic of philosophy and onto the topic of soccer. So that's often what happened. But when I first saw it, the space, I was like, oh, Stoicism, manly man, like you just come to that conception of being a very like manly kind of thing. And then when I got in the space, I was like, oh my God, why does so much of this make sense to me? It was like, I don't know. It was like a perspective shift it offered me. And especially with that circle of control, like I think I still have my drawing from like a year and a half ago with my original like circle of control that I drew out for myself because it just made so much sense. Why focus on all these things that I wish I could do things about, but I can't. Where there's the smaller circle where there's, people that I can affect, including myself. So now I try to just keep my thoughts in on my inner circle of control, and whatever's on the outside, I try and, take it as it comes kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was hugely helpful for me in that way.
Yeah, it's great to have those visuals too, because I do think that makes it, simpler. And that's the one thing about Stoicism. I can't tell you the number of times I've told people about Stoicism or talked about kind of its core components or core concepts, and someone says, "Oh, well, I do that. Well, I think that too." And there's so many people that do this, that believe what Stoicism teaches. But I think the key part that a lot of people are missing is the consistency of always coming back to it. So I, for the longest time, called myself a passive stoic. All I did was listen to the podcasts. Like I didn't really practice it. I didn't think about it or write about it every day. It was just something that kind of was in the car when I was driving. But once I started writing about it and really applying it and journaling and doing things where I was truly examining how I behaved every day in life, that's when I started to really reap the benefits of it. So yeah, on paper, I can sit here and say, I can't control that, but like, I should just ignore it. But then I would move forward throughout my life at work and I would try and control it every single day. And I
Right.
wasn't until I just like tapped in with myself and said, wait a second, I'm not really like, I'm kind of like talking the talk, but not walking the walk. And I think that's really the key part of it, is the consistency of it, of checking in with yourself on a daily basis or weekly basis of, how did I behave here? And being honest with yourself. Hey, I messed up here. I shouldn't have acted that way or said that to that person. And how could I have handled it better in the future? So I think but a lot of people don't want to do that. It's really hard to self-examine ourselves and be honest with ourselves, because it takes courage. It takes fortitude to kind of, you know, put yourself, like, I think because some people have such a negative self-talk, they put themselves down so much, so they associate any sort of feedback, self-feedback, as negative self-talk. But
Right.
really it shouldn't be that. you should be here knowing that the point of life is to improve ourselves, and how we do that is different for all of us, but it's the consistency that we can all share. So that's where I think the spaces were really nice, is because we had that consistency. Even though your journey looks different than my journey, looks different than someone else's journey, all of us coming together and just having this consistent sort of moment to sit there and be like, all right, what are we struggling with right now? Like that, I think that is really key part of self-improvement, really.
Yes. Yeah, being able to sit with yourself. A lot of people aren't willing to do so, you know. It's not sometimes not pleasant or not fun to, go inside and figure out all your shit, but it's so
Mm-hmm.
necessary. And I like the just the perspective change, I guess, that I received from going to those spaces. Like, one of the big things that affected me most was I was very instantly reactive with things. Um, and then someone said to me, "Oh, the pause." And I was like, "What the hell's the pause? What do I pause for? What's going on?" And then when it was explained to me, I was like, "Oh my God, we can pause. I don't have to react instantly. I can actually do this thing called take a pause before I react." And I'm trying to like make it part of my non-reaction, if that makes sense. And
Mm-hmm.
also taking a pause when it's something good, right? Because I'm always, I shouldn't have reacted like this or I shouldn't have done that. And, take a pause before I answer someone or whatever else. But at the same time, it's like when I do something good or something good happens, I'm also able to take a pause and reflect on that and appreciate it more, I think. So it's brought me like a greater sense of being able to appreciate the little things, you know?
Oh, that's fantastic, Jody. Yeah, that is really important. I'm glad you brought that up because most people do focus. They consider feedback or this kind of moment of reflection to be a moment where we can, I don't know, kind of pick apart our mistakes. But you should also do like what you're saying, is to acknowledge and be grateful for not the mistakes, right? For finishing the project perfectly, right? And having that moment of gratitude. I think, yeah, that is one thing that always made sense to me when I was started kind of studying philosophy. Was this, everyone's heard the phrase that this too shall pass, but it's typically, in my experience, associated with bad things, right? Someone, you find out about a terrible, health scare, or you have a car accident or something negative happens, and you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to remind yourself that, oh, this is going to pass. And that's true, it will. And that's resiliency, and that's grit, and that's what we need to do when we face those challenges. But also reminding yourself that when everything's wonderful and the sun is shining and the birds are chirping and life feels free and easy, that's going to pass too. That's going to go away too. And to just be grateful for that moment. I do think, as cliche as it sounds, this idea of gratitude and keeping a gratitude journal is I think really transformative in that sense. That I had a tendency, because I am very logic minded, and I am very business oriented. So I'm always looking for like the most efficient way to do things, the quickest way, the cheapest way. And I was doing it in every aspect of my life. And it just was like, this isn't necessary. Like it doesn't always have to be efficient. I don't have to squeeze every, efficiency out of every minute. Sitting here with a book for 4 hours is a completely reasonable way to spend my time. But gratitude is what kind of brought that to the forefront for me, reminding myself of what I have, instead of always striving for what I don't have, allowed me to be like, you know what, I'm going to chill today. I'm going to relax a little bit. I don't need to strive every day. I just need to have enough strive so that I'm not complacent.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I found for me that just being able to, because my mind, with my trauma, it tends to want to focus on it's just the brain, I think, it just remembers the negative stuff so much more easily than it does the positive stuff.
Well, it hurts more.
So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I've been doing a gratitude journal, so 3 entries in the morning and 3 entries at night. And sometimes it's just for little things like you forget to appreciate, well, we're having a sunny day and we haven't seen sun in 3 months, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a little thing in most people's days, but it's something that needs to be stopped and appreciated. Or the fact that I have, um, a dog who's right now currently opening the sliding door himself and going outside.
Nice. Smart
right?
guy.
Like the little things,
Yeah, yeah.
we have to we have to appreciate them because they are so important. And I think the more that we point out the things that we're grateful for, the more things that we see to be grateful for, you know?
Yeah, I think that is actually, this idea. I think a gratitude journal or gratitude practice is really important. I think it's can give you a lot of positive things that can come out of it. One thing I've noticed with myself personally, at least, is so I find that, like, yes, it absolutely does that. I do think it helps you to start seeing the positive side of things, especially if you are a more critical person or someone that tends to look at the downsides or negative side of things first. I think it helps you to start shifting that perspective a little bit to maybe notice the good things first, or at least notice the good things shortly after you notice the bad things.
Right.
Um, but yeah, what it does for me, which I think is really important and something that I've just kind of started to learn about myself over the last few months is I do have moments of depression. I was medicated for depression at one point in my life. I no longer am, but I still have my moments. And what I noticed is by doing my gratitude practice every day, I'm able to kind of find the moments when I'm starting to kind of slip into that depression, because the things that I'm grateful for become more basic. They become more simple. I'm grateful for water. I'm grateful for
Right.
fresh air. Like they I'm grasping for something. I'm saying that, like, my life right now feels so difficult that I'm actually grateful for nothing. So then I sit here and go, okay, well, that's not true. I'm grateful for the water on my table here. But then on the
Right.
days that I'm really happy and things are going well, and the outlook is a little bit more positive, my gratitude journal is much more intricate. Oh, I'm grateful for this moment where I saw my friend at the store and we got to talk about this or whatever. I'm grateful for this. It's more intricate, it's more detailed. So I notice as I fill out my gratitude journal every morning, if they are simplistic or not, they're very basic things. I'm grateful for fresh air, that sort of thing. I kind of tap in with myself and I say, okay, there's something off now. Like, something's not all together here in my body, and I want to check in with that. So it kind of gets me a chance to, like, get in front of it a little bit, to get in front of maybe a depressive feeling coming on. I can kind of get in front of it and say, oh, you know what? Maybe I don't work so much today. Maybe I get outside more today, or maybe I call a friend, or
Right.
do something to kind of, like, redirect this energy that's heading in towards
Mm-hmm.
a depressive state. And we redirect it towards something more positive.
Yeah, I love that because when I first started, I was like, oh, how many times can I write? I'm grateful for the sun, right? Like I was like,
Hmm.
it's so basic. And then I was like, okay, well, wait a second. Just when I notice that it's the same with you. Like I notice when they're just like one word sentences, I'm grateful for water or sun or,
Hmm.
grass, then I don't feel like I'm as connected with my body, whereas when I'm like, if I go out into nature and, get reconnected and then come back and then do my gratitude journal, then I'm like, oh, like I'm grateful for the beautiful blue heron that I was able to get, these fantastic photographs of. And it just
Mm.
becomes like, um, I don't know, like almost a positive distraction,
Hmm.
and able to notice the beauty, true beauty in things that I might not have appreciated in the morning when I was just grateful for water.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you do it twice a day, because I've never done that. So I might try and add that in, because that gives you a good way to, like, in kind of the theme we're talking about here, is a good way to, like, compare, right? Like, in the morning I was maybe feeling this way, and in the afternoon I was feeling this way. What happened in the middle to change my mood,
Yes.
one way or the
Yes.
other?
For
So that's
me,
great.
I know in the mornings are always like my hardest time where I'm most mentally like tough on myself. So
Hmm.
that's why I decided, someone said, okay, well, if you're doing it in the morning, why don't you do it at night? And then exactly what you said, just take a note of what you did during the day that allowed for that perspective change, right? And with me, that's really all I need sometimes, and is a perspective change. And Stoicism really did help me, find numerous ways to look at things in a different way, because with a trauma brain, you're stuck and you're like, oh, it's this way and it's this way because of this. And
Hmm.
when you can learn something new or a different approach or perspective, it really does. It doesn't just change your perspective on that specific situation, it changes your perspective on all situations that
Hmm.
are similar
Absolutely.
to that um, situation, and that's been so helpful for me.
Yeah, I mean that is the biggest thing that we teach in our coaching. So something else that we do at Via Stoic is we offer Stoic coaching. So myself, Benny, and Bryce are available for basically coaching sessions, and it's very much a peer to peer kind of support situation. It's not therapy, but it is kind of a more of a like I said, a peer support system. But that's what our job is as Stoic coaches, is to kind of offer those other perspectives and give different views for that exact reason of what you just said, which is, yeah, you might be dealing with this situation at work or this annoying person that you don't like. And by offering up a different perspective on why they might be behaving that way, you can then take that and apply it to every situation in your life where someone's being annoying, which of course comes up all the time. So that is like a huge thing that I don't think people really grasp, is like kind of the snowball effect of studying philosophy, and it's not, you learn how to solve or deal with one issue, but that does apply and kind of overlap into many other issues of our lives. Because if you really think about it, I mean, if you went and wrote down the three to five things that cause you the most trouble in a given day, and then you looked over that for the last year or two, I bet those things would pretty much be the same. And it's
Yes.
anxiety, it's stress, it's these core kind of emotions that we struggle with on every aspect of our life. So if we can get something, a framework like Stoicism, that helps us tackle those moments when we're feeling anxious, then whether we're anxious about our kid going on a trip, or we're anxious about driving in a car, it doesn't matter. We can handle that anxiety either way. And that's kind of the thing that where Stoicism gives you this ability to grow your toolbox, to grow the things, to the options that you have to dealing with issues.
Yes, absolutely. Um, I think when I first came in, I was, almost taken aback at the fact that, like people were having the same issues and the same struggles 2000 years ago or
Yeah.
longer, right? Like it's just like, what? He was struggling with that kind of stuff like that everyone's still struggling with today, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that kind of also brings it into perspective that like that's human nature.
Exactly, exactly. Like human beings have been exactly the same for 2000 years. And that's what traveling did for me when I went to and lived in different cultures for a few years. I did that for years and saw that no matter who we worship, no matter where we live in the world, it doesn't matter. We're all dealing with the same problems. We're all trying to accomplish the same goals of build a family, take care of that family, take care of ourselves, live a happy life. Everyone is doing that across the board, regardless of the language they speak or the God that they worship. And I just wish that people were aware of that, because we're so hyper aware of our differences, which do exist and are true, but what our similarities are 80%, right? And we ignore
Yes.
that. Like and it's so weird to me how we ignore our similarities without recognizing them. It's weird.
Yes, it's so true. I spent a lot of time traveling when I was younger too, and going down to, I was a traveler who I like to immerse myself in the culture that I'm in. So I usually, I stay at a resort or something, but I spend most of my time not with resort people. Like I want to go into town, I want to hang out with the people in town, I want to eat with the locals kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly right. People are just they're searching for happiness. They just want food, a roof over their head, and it doesn't matter like if it's in Colombia or if it's in Europe or whatever else. The basic human needs are all the same.
Mm-hmm.
And why that's not, something that brings us closer together when it's more of an 80-20 division, it's always baffled me. Like why do we always look and see, oh, the differences first instead of all the similarities? Like every human being on earth, who cuts themselves is bleeding the same color.
Mm-hmm. I think to be honest with you, I think it's easier. I think it's easier to tear things down. It's easier to find issues. It's harder sometimes to find. I think it's harder to find commonalities with someone that you already know you disagree with on something, right? Especially when it comes to politics and things like that. Like we have such an identity now with what we believe. And I don't even mean political conversations. Like even if we're talking about your favorite musical artist, once you say
Right.
that my favorite artist is Taylor Swift, when someone comes at you and says Taylor Swift is terrible, well, you're going to feel personally attacked. And that's weird. Like,
Right.
that's a new thing to me that I don't know if like I like stuff. And when people make fun of the things that I like, I don't feel personally attacked. But for some reason, that is like what's going on, and so this divisiveness, I don't know. I just at the end of the day, I just for some reason it's easier for people to turn on like this critical, hateful, you know, sort of feeling than it is to say that, oh, you know what, we are both dealing with the same struggles. I think it's hard for
Mm.
people to acknowledge other people's struggles when they're struggling, and so many people are struggling. I mean, you have what,
Yes.
60% of the United States lives paycheck to paycheck, so they
Yeah.
literally can't have any sort of thing go outside, unexpected expense pops up, they are immediately stressing. That's 60% of America. That's insane. I assume
Yeah.
that record or that figure is the same in or similar in Canada and
Oh God.
in
Yeah.
Europe and stuff
Yeah.
as well. So I mean, people are struggling, people are suffering. So it's when you're suffering, I think it's hard to acknowledge the suffering in someone else. But it's easier to call out the problems that you have with them and the issues that they're causing you. And I don't know. So, yeah, I don't like this idea of blaming media and social media and all that, because at the end of the day, I think human beings choose to do what they want, and they're the ultimate deciders of how they spend their time. But it is tough out there, dealing with the constant distractions and constant, hyper fueled perspectives of the media, where everyone is just trying to get you to click and trying to get you to stay angry. Like, anger is an emotion that the media and politicians want to put you in, because you're more
Mm-hmm.
easily distorted, you're more easily controlled when you're angry, because you're not coming from logic and reason. This is why the Stoics talk so much about what a poison anger is. Anger is literally, they say, it poisons the well of our mind, because when we're angry, we're not thinking clearly, we're not rationalizing, we're not looking at the other person across the street from us as another human being. We're looking at them as the problem, as the issue, and if I can just get rid of that person, everything would be better. But that's not true. And for some reason, that we've just embraced this idea that anger and being angry is okay, and that we're encouraging people to chant that they want to expel a certain group from their country. Like, that is not okay behavior. But we
Yeah.
as a society have decided that it is for some reason. And I think it goes back to so many people are suffering and they just want to relieve the suffering. And if that means we deport 1 million people, well, then okay.
Yeah. It's crazy, honestly, because it's like if you just look at your neighbor across the street and, they look different or they're from a different culture, they're still trying to do the same thing as you are. They're still trying to provide for their family. They're still trying to put food on the table. They're still trying to, maintain a job of some sort or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just having those conversations and taking the hatred out. Like, if you like Taylor Swift and I hate her, like, that should make no difference in
Mm-hmm.
our conversations, right? It's just what's something you like and something I don't like. Maybe you don't like soccer. I love soccer. Like, there shouldn't be so much divisiveness based on what people like and don't like. And I think that's one of the things, as you said, like, it's promoted so much on social media and through politics and even sometimes through religion, just like so much
Mm-hmm.
hatred. And it just needs to, everyone stop being so angry, take a minute and actually think about what you're angry about, because half the time I feel like the anger is just a collective anger. You're angry because some other people on social media are angry too, so it's just easier to go with the angry people than it is to, like, be
Oh
kind.
yeah. No, that's 100%. I completely agree. I think that's 100% true. This idea that people kind of just go with the pack. I mean, at the end of the day, we're human beings. We want to be in community. We want to be with each other. We want to build things together, create things together. This is what human beings do. It's built into our DNA. And what we have done in our society is forced everyone to get rid of their hobbies, not have their friend groups, disconnect from their community. Why? So that they can go to work every day. And then when you disconnect from your community, what happens? These fibers fall apart, these communities fall apart. So what do? We go to the internet to find a community. But what happens on the internet? A lot of angry people gather there. So we form
Hmm.
groups around our anger. Oh, well, I'm angry about this thing. Well, let me find all the other people that are pissed off about it, and let's
Yeah,
be
yeah.
pissed off
We're gonna
together.
get
This is
the
going to be
angry
great.
gang.
Yeah, and it's just like that doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't really do anything. Um, but I don't know. I do think that there is something in this idea that we have a lack of community. I've heard people talking about the kind of the loneliness epidemic. They're an epidemic of loneliness, and I do think that is
Yes.
something that is definitely going on. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, it is really tough we find ourselves in the situation that we're in, and I think it's just a product of something that we talk about a lot on the podcast is that we all need a framework. Like at Via Stoica, it is not our job, it is not our goal to turn you into a Stoic. We're just trying to give you tools, and maybe you want to use some of them, but you do need a framework. One thing that we will say is that you need a framework. I personally choose to use Stoic philosophy as my framework for how I live and interact with the world. But when you don't have a framework, you do follow some framework, you just don't know what it is. That framework might
Right.
be the Instagram algorithm. That's the way you make decisions, because you go on Instagram and you read what's on there, and then you say, oh well, the world's terrible, so I'm going to go be terrible. um,
Right.
and so everyone has a framework. You're operating under a framework right now. I would just want to be real crystal clear about whose framework that is. And mine is mine. Like I said, it's mostly Stoicism and maybe some other things I've learned throughout my life and my own experiences and stuff. But we all have a framework, and we're operating under it right now. So if you're living a life that is difficult, if you're living a life that's full of stress and anxiety, then your framework is not working for you, and you need to reevaluate that framework. And if you want some help doing that, you can go to viastoica.com, and we have a free consultation. We'll meet with you for 30 minutes for free to kind of talk about what you're experiencing, what's going on, and what we would advise as to kind of the best path forward for you. But I really encourage people that it doesn't have to be Stoic philosophy or philosophy at all, but find a framework that works for you. Find values in your life that are important to you, and use those as your filter as you go through life when you're making decisions. Does this align with my values? Does this bring me closer to my goals? If not, you shouldn't be doing it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know that I completely, like, I know my values and my core values and my morals, and I know what I'll stand up for. I'm not sure what framework. I guess it's probably just my own framework, but it's bits and pieces from everything that I've learned. So bits and pieces from therapy, bits and pieces from Stoicism to make something that basically works for me so that, I can now try and react and respond based off those values instead of based off what, like my trauma brain, for example.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, just to be more practical, when I say the word framework, like something as simple as what you said, at the beginning of the conversation was like the dichotomy of control, having this circle of control, and you wrote down and you drew your circle of control, and then you have your inner circle of control, which is the true thing, right? Like just that's a framework, all right there, all by itself. So a framework doesn't have to necessarily be this huge, intricate thing. It can be something very simple that you use to
Mhm.
filter the decisions that you make in your life. So the dichotomy of control is the easiest one. Can I control this? No, then I can't do anything about it. Can I control
Right,
this? Yes. Okay. How can I control this? Well, I can change my opinion. I can change my actions. Like that is a framework right there. And I think that's how simple it can be. Like the golden rule, what is it? Treat others how you want to be treated. Like that's a framework. If you truly follow it every day, and you're following that rule, that's your framework of life. So that's what I mean. It doesn't have to be something very intricate. It's just something that you use to help you navigate life.
right. And I like that. I like this the simplification of it because sometimes like my mind gets overcomplicated and thinks too much about, like, oh, what I should be doing or how I should be approaching it or whatever else, and to be able to have something to just bring it back to, basic simplicity of like my goals are to be kind and my goals are to help people and to be able to like just bring myself back to that via realizing all these external things that I worry about, I can't fix, but I
Mm-hmm.
can fix and control the things that are, my inner circle, my relationships, and my work with myself, and those sorts of things. So I like being able to bring it back to that. It's
Yeah. And I think another
very
thing too, that when it comes to this kind of dichotomy of control, is to let people know there's kind of also this thing where this area, that's sort of a middle ground, where areas where we have influence but we don't have control. And this is
right.
like the hardest part. This is the part where gray area exists, and that's really difficult. But I think the easiest way to kind of visualize it is to think about an athlete. So if you think someone who's an athlete and their goal is to, win a gold medal at the Olympics, right? Well, they can't guarantee if they're going to win a gold medal at the Olympics because they can't control or dictate what any of the other athletes do. But they
Right.
themselves can control how they, work out. What's their nutrition situation? What's their recovery situation? What's are they going to the doctors and getting their various blood levels and stuff checked enough? Like, they can control all of those situations and put themselves in the best situation to get a gold medal at the Olympics, but they can't control whether they receive that gold medal. And this is why the Stoics, and this idea of like kind of where you have influence but maybe not control, is why the Stoics focus so much on the process and not the outcome. So the goal in life is not to get the gold medal. That's not the actual goal. The goal is to strive and thrive and work towards getting a gold medal, because you can control that. You can control if you wake up every morning and go to the gym. You can control if you go, practice your whatever the sport is every day. You can control whether you eat healthy or not, but you can't control anything that anyone else does, including the other athletes or the other judges or anything like that, right? So the gold medal is not the goal. The gold medal is the nice to have. It's what Stoics called a preferred indifference. I would prefer to have a gold medal because I did all this work to achieve it. But at the end of the day, I can't control it. So I have to let go and accept that this outcome may not occur, but the process is still there. And to take it a step further, even if you don't get the gold medal, the Stoics understand that throughout that process, we have built new skills in our life. We have grown personally. We have grown closer towards the person that we want to be. So it's still a win, even if we don't actually achieve the goal of getting the gold medal. So I just think that there's also this thing where people get tripped up when it comes to the dichotomy of control, because they're like, oh, well, I can control whether I win this thing, like this basketball game or something,
Right.
and you don't, but you do have some influence. So that's where things can get a little gray. And but also I think that's where you learn the most, when you have to have these conversations with yourself and kind of pick apart things and decide, like, is this something I fully control or only partially control? Like, that's where you really start to learn about yourself and learn about, I mean, really the world around you too.
It's so true because when I'm dealing with people with mental health, and I often get asked, like, if I do A, B, C, D, and E, will I, be healed, quote, healed? And I'm like, don't focus on being healed. Focus on healing.
Mm.
Focus on the little steps that it takes every day to get to that point. But focus on the journey, because the journey is the most important thing, right? Like how we get there, the things we enjoy on the way there. Even if we don't get to quote healed, we've still learned so much and grown so much through just the practice of healing. So I try to say,
Absolutely.
like, don't worry about the end goal, just enjoy the trip along the way. And that's with life too, because like we're all gonna end up in the same spot. So
Yeah.
we want to like just enjoy what we can and learn as much as we can um
Yeah,
on
it's
the journey, instead of just
absolutely.
focusing on I have to get to the destination.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is something that I'm still kind of learning. I probably will continue to learn for the rest of my life. But recently, about 2 years ago, my mom died unexpectedly, and that has been a very difficult thing for me to cope with over the last 2 years, and
Yeah,
become comfortable with over the last 2 years.
yeah,
But it has also been something that has taught me so much. Like, death in itself has taught me a lot. The process of going through it with my mom taught me a lot. The process of going through grief, what I'm doing now, is continuing to teach me. So I just think that we recoil so much from challenges and from difficult things, but it's those challenges and those difficult things that really teach you who you are and what you can accomplish. And that to me is the greatest drug in life is getting high on your own supply. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I really think that we have this thing where we recoil from challenges. And if you can start to tap into this thing inside of you that doesn't recoil from challenges, but actually embraces them and steps into them, life gets a lot more interesting and a lot more entertaining because of what you said, Jody, which is that process becomes more interesting. The process becomes more intricate, and the process is where the magic happens. It's not the outcome. It's not the end. When you get to the end, it's boring. No entrepreneur talks
Yes.
about selling their business. Every entrepreneur on earth talks about building the business, talks about the late nights in the office with their buddies trying to figure out some problem. They don't talk about the day that, oh, I sold the company and then I did nothing after that. Like, that's not
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. That's so true. That's so true. It was like with soccer, I played a lot of soccer when I was growing up, or downhill racing, right? It was like for me, it was the adventure of going to a new place and checking out the new place and what I was going to see, and if I won, I won. If I lost, I lost. It was just the whole trying to enjoy the whole moment instead of just focusing on trying to win that race. I would again train, do my training, do my workouts, do everything that I could to make myself in the best position to win that race. But if I didn't win, I was never like that person who like lost their shit because they, came in second or third or not even fourth or fifth sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
um, because that wasn't my priority. My priority was, wow, look at this new adventure that
Mm-hmm.
I get to go on, and the new things I get, and new people I get to meet, and a new place I get to see and ski.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. You never run out of stuff. Like there's no when the process is the fun part and the journey is the fun part, then you're always going to have fun because you're like, even if you don't reach the goal or it doesn't happen exactly how you want it to, like, you still have that process, and then you start the process over again.
Yes, yep. And sometimes during that, I found like for myself, sometimes during that, my process would realign to something a little slightly different. You know?
That's the point. Like, right? That's the idea, because you're doing it again. You're like, wait, this doesn't, I find if I do it this way, it like fits me a little better. I like the way it feels better, so let me try it this way. And
Hmm.
that's the like trial and error part. We all know this idea of trial and error, but we don't always apply it to our own life well enough.
Yes, absolutely. And when you were mentioning that Ryan Holiday book, what was it? I did buy it. It's in my
The
pile
Daily
of books.
Stoic is the
Yeah, I
daily
love
book.
that book, man,
Yeah. Hmm.
because it's so easily broken down. Like it's just one small like paragraph and then a breakdown paragraph, and it's so much for me. It's so much food for thought.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a really great book. I think it's a great place for anyone to start with Stoicism, because it's bite-sized little things. There, like I said, there's a quote from a Stoic philosopher every day, and then Ryan Holiday kind of gives his 2 cents on what that quote means and how we apply it in our lives. But yeah, it's every day you have one, so it's not a big deal if you miss it, or you can just pick up the book and read 4 or 5 of them in one day, or skip around,
Hmm.
because each month has a different topic, right? How to deal with anxiety, how to deal, thinking about death, these sort of things. So if you're struggling with something specific, and there might be a month where it's dedicated to that topic, and you can go pop over to that month and read it. So I can't recommend that book enough. It's easily the book that I've given as a gift more than any other book on earth. So yeah, I highly recommend it. And or if you want to get started in Stoicism a different way, if maybe books aren't your thing, we do have the Via Stoica podcast. If you're more auditory, if that's better for you, where we have episodes going through kind of the major core components of Stoicism, and then also some things where we talk about our own challenges and things like that. We do have a blog. If reading is more of your preference, you can go to viastoica.com. Again, that's VIASTOICA, viastoica.com. And we have a blog there with, hundreds of articles. If quotes are your things, we do have quote pages. We actually have the most annotated quotes on the internet. Hundreds of Seneca quotes, hundreds of Epictetus quotes, all compiled by our good friend Benny. So we do have a couple different resources for people who are wanting to get started in Stoicism. And as always, we're easily available. If you want to shoot us a message on our website. We will respond to you there, or of course, DM messages on any of the social platforms. And then you can just find me personally at Brendan at Via Stoica. So yeah, but that's where I would recommend, is whatever works best for you, is to find some method of consumption, whether that's audio, reading, books, blog, whatever, and just kind of start to dabble around and see what feels right to you, what things in the philosophy resonate with you, what tools you think you could use. And if anything sticks out to you, if as a listener, if something is interesting to you, I would love to hear about it. Please shoot me a message and let me know. What sort of tools or tricks from Stoicism have worked well for you. I would love to hear about that.
Yeah, and I will post all your links and stuff with the show notes so everyone knows how to get a hold of everyone. One more thing that I wanted to mention is I really like how Stoicism, it has a similar approach to death as Buddhism. Like
Mm.
it it's just something. It's part of life. It's part of the life cycle. And it's not like they like rush towards it, but they don't shy away from talking about it either. Whereas I find in North America, like if people start to talk about death, all of a sudden you're morbid or you're this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, oh, wait a second. It's literally part of the circle. Everyone's gonna end up there. So let's make it a conversation. Maybe, it eases people's like fear or whatever. It just to understand that, you know, everybody's going to have their time, but there's not anything wrong with, discussing the topic long before it's your time. And I find in North America, we're really uptight about like having discussions about death. Everyone thinks you're like, oh, morbid or whatever else. And I just like the stoic approach to that too.
Well, this is a perfect way. This is a perfect segue, because this is something that I definitely want to start talking more about. Like I said, as I've kind of grown in my own journey with death over the last 2 years, this is now something that I want to start talking about and start writing about more. Is our not only in North America, but just society at large, and how we view death. And it was something that was so weird to me as I was, coming to terms with my mom's death. I would interact with people, and I would say the simple phrase of, "Yeah, my mom died," or last week, last month, my mom died, and I would see the visual, like, uncomfortableness that happened on people's faces when I said the word died or death, or I just said the D word. Like, and that's when then I started to realize all these euphemisms that we have for death. Oh, they passed on, they kicked the bucket, they've gone to a better place. That we have all these words that we use to not say death, to not say she
Yeah, yeah,
died, he died. And it's kind of upsetting, to be honest with you, because like we've, kind of the theme that we've talked about throughout this thing is, we're all going through the same shit. And at the end of the day, we are all going to die.
yeah.
And the fact that that is the thing that we as a society have decided, let's not worry about that. We spend so much energy and time and focus celebrating life. We've got these gender reveals all over the internet, casually burning down forest. We're fine with
Oh my
that. We'll
God.
celebrate life all day long. But the second someone wants to talk about death openly, whoa, hang on, we got to turn down the volume and shut all the doors. Like, I
Yes,
want us to get comfortable with death, because I do think having a intimate relationship with death is the best way to enjoy life.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that Stoicism kind of reinforced the feelings that I had about Buddhism
Hmm.
because it just, those two things happen to correlate. Um And I'm totally the same thing. Like when I can do it so casually because my mom passed away like years ago, but people will be like, "Oh, what about your adoptive mom or your birth mom?" I'm like, "Oh, I have two dead moms." And the look on their face is just like, "What did you just say?" Like,
Hmm.
my God, they're so taken aback. And I'm like, "Well, I'm just like literally stating a fact. It's not like a bad fact or a good fact. It's just a fact that happened. That was a fact of life."
Hmm.
It was a part of my life, and how I choose to deal with it is, grieving's a long ass process, man. It comes and it goes in ebbs and waves like the tides, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and
Um,
it is a strange, grief has been an interesting journey to go on. I've been reading a book currently called The Five Invitations, which was written by a Buddhist hospice care. He kind of started, I don't know if he started it or he was just the head of it, but it's like a hospice care, but very much centered in kind of like the Buddhist ideals. Um, and he just talks about kind of like what being in that role for the last, I think it's 20 some odd years or something, has kind of taught him about sitting bedside with so many people as they die and what that has taught him. And
yes.
it is fantastic. So if you want to change your relationship with death, if that's something that you're interested in, checking out the Five Invitations is a really good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely take note of that as well, for sure. What about Stoic Spaces? Are Stoic Spaces coming back?
Well, actually, we are coming back today. The next one will be in 45 minutes. So
No, seriously?
very serious. Yes, yes.
Oh, so excited.
Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna do that. So we'll have the next one in about 45 minutes, and then we haven't decided on like what the schedule will be moving forward, but
Right,
we will have a regular schedule. It won't be as often as we were doing them before. I think if you
right,
remember,
right. That was a lot, though.
yeah, we were doing them 3 times. At one point, we were doing them 4 times a week, and that was excessive. And then we cut it
Yeah.
down to two times a week, and even that. So we're kind of just trying to feel it out. We're also going to start adding in maybe some lives where we go across multiple platforms instead of just on X.
Oh,
Um,
that's cool.
so maybe we do that once a month, and then we have a space once a month. Like we're kind of sort of figuring that out right now. So definitely follow Via Stoica on Twitter and Instagram to keep up with what we've got going on. And when we do have a schedule, a set schedule on what we're doing with our spaces and our lives, we will be posting it across all of our socials and sending it out to our newsletter. So that's the last thing we never really, well, we kind of mentioned it throughout the conversation, but this idea of the pause is something that we have really used in our newsletter to send out once a month to just invite people to kind of take a pause at least once a month and reflect on the previous 4 weeks and reflect on the upcoming 4 weeks and sort of just do that once a month. So that's what we do with our newsletter, The Pause, and you can sign up for that at viastoica.com/the pause, or no, /newsletter, excuse me.
Awesome. I'm
Yeah,
so excited now. I'm like, oh my God, we have a space in 45 minutes.
that's happening. We're here.
That's so stoked, man. That's awesome. Awesome. Um, I just want to say thank you. Thank you. I know we've been trying to get together for quite a while here. Our
Mhm.
schedules kind of haven't matched up, and the weather and all sorts of crazy things in the way, but I want you to know I appreciate this conversation. I appreciate you sharing, and I appreciate your time. And I'm super stoked to, hook up in like 45 minutes and listen to that space. So,
Absolutely, Jody. No, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation, and I really enjoy you not only the conversation we had today, but just having you in the community and being involved and supporting us throughout this kind of journey from the Be Stoic space to the Via Stoica space to beyond. So we appreciate you, Jody.
yeah, congratulations to all of you, because it's just you're doing amazing things and you're helping so many people, and I think, that's so important. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think if you keep helping people at the core of what you're doing, you're going to have a good time.
yes, exactly, exactly. And you're going to meet the right people too, right?
Absolutely.
So awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll do a part two in a couple of months, do a catch up and see how things are going on.
Oh, I'd love that. Let's
And
do it.
all right, sounds good. Thank you, my friend.
You got it, Jody. Have a good one.
You too. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Mental Health Raw and Open podcast with your host, Jody Betty. Our sponsor for this episode is Shauna Hawkins Photography. With a variety of prints and keepsakes to suit any decor, you're guaranteed to find the perfect piece for your space. Visit shaunahawkins.smugmug.com and make your neighbors jealous today. If you enjoyed today's show, please give it a like and don't forget to smash that subscribe button. And if you appreciate the work I do, why not buy me a coffee? Details in the show notes. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Dorian Kent and produced by Jody Betty and Dorian Kent. This has been a Raw and Open production.